Mr. Eric Wilson is the chairman of our Board of Road Commissioners. He's here tonight to address any issues that I can't cover, or hopefully we'll be able to team up and take care of any issues. Would you like to say something before?
The commission understands, the members understand, this is very, very vital to this area, to this city. As we have met with Brian, we've met with the state reps, as the mayor has indicated. We know it's important to this city. We know it's important to this area. And I think this has been on our agenda always in regards to discussions. We have talked to your state reps. We have talked to your state senators, your congressmen. All those issues are important. We're here to get the job done and as quickly as possible. I have a lot of friends that live in this area. I have a business in this city, and I want to make sure that it gets done. So, any questions, we'll be glad to respond the best we can.
Thank you. I'd also like to echo that my staff, by the way, I'm the director of the engineering department at the Road Commission, and we're trying everything we can to get funding for this, and we certainly appreciate the city's efforts to help us. I'm going to go through some of the conditions of the bridge quickly. I won't take up a lot of your time. But I want to echo exactly what Eric said. The condition of the bridge, the condition of having to restrict traffic and truck traffic over these bridges is something that's very painful for us too. And we're well aware of the inconvenience and just the downright pain it is for all the businesses and the local residents in this area. We have to watch out for public safety, and we need to restrict these bridges to do that. If we didn't have to do that, we certainly wouldn't. But as you'll see, the condition of these bridges, it certainly warrants some immediate action. In each of the board members, we passed out a packet. The first sheet is just a factoid sheet, gives you a little bit of history on the bridges and how they're constructed using pre-stressed concrete box beams. And the second sheet there is what is basically a placemat. It folds out to about 11 by 17. If you'll look on the middle, in the bottom middle, I think, yeah, this is hardly working, but for the audience's sake, where my laser pointer is there, it's in the bottom middle, shows sort of the, looks like my pointer's not doing real well tonight, but it shows the type of beam there where it's a rectangular concrete box beam with steel reinforcing, pre-stressed reinforcing steel along the bottom. Both of these bridges are built that same way. Back in the old days, this was a quick, easy way to do it. It was cheap. We're finding a lot of problems now. They did these concrete box beams. They tied them together side by side, and then they simply paved over the top of them. It was a quick way to do it, and we expected a much longer life from these, but we're finding a lot of issues. What's happening is with the pavement going right on top of that box beam, of course, the asphalt cracks where the beams come together there on the corners, and coming down so the salt and the water leaches down the side of each one of these beams, gets down around the corner, it hangs around that corner, busts off the concrete, busts off the concrete into the steel, starts corroding the steel in each of those corners, and as those steel strands start to pop, the load that they normally would have carried gets transferred to all the other steel strands in their beam and in the beam adjacent to it. So you'll see a degradation, and the degradation curve is shown on these placemats up high along with the rating. In the blue is the degradation curve, and you can see that over the last couple of inspections, these the condition of both of these bridges and their beams have just deteriorated and dropped dramatically. I'd also point out on the factoid sheet, you'll find that the rating on these bridges is, I think, it was something like 21 out of 100 points and 17 out of 100 points, something to that effect, which obviously is pretty dramatic. Let's take a look at the underside of the beams. These are the beams that we just saw. These are looking at them lengthwise, and you can see the broken strands. You can see the spalling that I talked about with the concrete, exposing the concrete strands. And as those get exposed to salt, they corrode, they snap, and then the rest of the beams, or the rest of the tendons, have to carry that load. The adjacent beams start carrying that load. So we've lost an awful lot of strength in that bridge. This is the Avon Road maintenance of traffic how we propose to maintain the traffic. I think everybody's already aware of that. We're going to have to run 2 lanes of traffic, one in eastbound, one in westbound on Avon Road. But what I want to call your attention to is the cross-section in the center bottom of the page. I guess this is just not working there. Center bottom of the page will show you the cross-section, looking lengthwise down the pre-stressed concrete box beams. The box beams with the X's through them actually have exposed and broken strands. Therefore, they have very little of their strength left. They can't be counted on. And we were able to find about a couple dozen decent box beams there. And so we've shifted the traffic over onto them. We've restricted the traffic loads from the trucks so that the beams that are there will not have to, will be stressed as little as possible until we can nurse this along. Next in your package is the same photo of the underside, the beams of Livernois Bridge. Again, you can see the extensive corrosion and spalling of the concrete. Those strands are breaking. Maybe in your packet you can see some of these photos. You can actually see, steel strands actually hanging down beneath this bridge. We saw this same situation on the Silver Bell Bridge as it started to erode. It was the same type of construction in Silver Bell Bridge. Once these strands started breaking and hanging down like that, had a very short lifespan. We ended up closing it. Fortunately, we were in a position we were about to start reconstruction anyway.
Tom, I want to add that safety is our main concern. These bridges are re-inspected right now every 1 or 2 months, or 3 months.
Every 3 months now. They're on a 3-month cycle.
We will not hesitate to close the bridges if safety is the concern, period. I just to let you know. I know it's an inconvenience, but to me, safety is the main factor, and that has to be our main concern. And I know it's an inconvenience. I know it's a crisis situation, but you got to understand. My thinking is, as chairman of the road commission, we're not going to have a bridge collapse with somebody on it, period. So just to let you know, that's our main concern. We're going to do our best to make sure that we check on this on a regular basis.
Thank you, Eric. The last slide that you have there, the last piece of paper, again shows the maintenance of traffic on Livernois. And you can see, again, we're going to have to restrict it to 2 lanes. We were able to, the original, when our bridge consultant went out and took a look at this, and the last inspection saw how much deterioration had happened, was recommending a significant reduction, I think 13 tons total for the load for a vehicle on that bridge. We were able to take a look at that, looked at the different beams that we were able to and this one doesn't have the X's, although I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I thought it did. But if you look underneath each of those beams, it'll tell you the number of the beams on top and the number of broken strands or exposed strands is shown underneath that, and you'll find beams with 11, 13 broken strands, essentially useless. So we were able to take a look at that and said, well, what if we shifted all the traffic to this one side? And we absolutely made sure nobody can get on this side, and can we then at least get this above the 13-ton load limit that she was proposing, because at 13 tons we wouldn't even be able to get school buses or a single fire truck across there safely. Obviously the fire truck would respond as best they could, and hopefully they would be able to continue to do that for a few years. But we looked at that again. We shifted the traffic then all the way over. That's why you can see the traffic shift is pretty dramatic. I'm sorry. The traffic shift is pretty dramatic. It's moving the traffic over to the more easterly side of the bridge, kind of easterly central side of the bridge, so that we can not only get 2 lanes of traffic across there, nurse this bridge along, but we were able to have her look at that again and get it re-rated again for, it'll be about 21 tons, which does allow the passage of school buses, which I know is very important on this this intersection. As far as status, the Avon Bridge is funded. Let me start off by telling you how our bridges are funded for reconstruction. They're like all of our other projects. We're no longer, the Road Commission can no longer afford to do our own road projects or bridge projects, and we have to rely on when we can get federal or state funding to do any road improvements, unfortunately, anymore. But so this is like any other road project. It's submitted is scored against all the other bridges in the region in this case, and we hope to get funding from the local bridge program. It's run out of MDOT, combination of federal and state fundings. The Avon Road Bridge is funded in 2013 at this point for reconstruction. We have it in our budget. The Road Commission has it budgeted to start design in 2012 for a reconstruction of 2013. The Livernois Bridge, we will be submitting for funding this May. If it is approved, it would be approved in 2014 for construction. Obviously, there's no guarantee that it'll be approved. Again, it has to compete against all the other bridges in the region, and unfortunately, this one is pretty bad. I think it's got a real good chance of funding, but an awful lot of bridges, not only in Oakland County, but in nearby counties that share our regional funding, are also in bad shape. So I can't guarantee that. We're pretty optimistic, but even at that, 2014's a long way to go, and we're doing everything we can to move these up. We appreciate the city and the mayor in particular calling everybody and the brother, trying to find some alternatives for funding and move these things up. But one of the ways that we're hoping to partner with you to move these bridges up is even if they do get moved up to 2012, if the Avon Road Bridge, for example, gets moved up to 2012, there's nothing we can do about it until we get it designed. So we want our budget right now is allocated for funding of the Avon Bridge only in 2012. So we're proposing to split the cost of the preliminary engineering, the design, in this year for both of the bridges, get them both designed. They're right next to each other. We've got to use the same hydraulic information. They're the same type of bridge at this point. So it makes a lot of sense for the economy of scale to go ahead and design them both at this point and continue to search for funding, particularly for Livernois, and hopefully we think we've got a good chance of hopefully getting Avon moved up to 2012 if we have the design done. But if the design isn't done, we can't. There's no point in moving it up to 2012 because we can't construct it till we have plans.
One of the things in regards to the Clinton River, having been a member of the Clinton River Watershed Council over the years in Orion Township as representative, I'm aware that there's trout in that stream. And so when you deal with a river that has trout or some type of natural game fish in there, you have to deal very carefully with the DNR. And we've run into this problem before, and so it's an issue that we need to move on as far as design. I know Tom and I talked about that particular issue, how we would design it and resolve that issue, because we're concerned about those issues. That can delay a construction of a bridge several months. In other words, you cannot work or build when there's a spawning season going on. So those are legitimate issues that we're aware of, and then we've talked about that. And we're aware of those, and we're working on it. I know people probably wonder, you know, are you aware that that's a trout stream? I mean, we are aware of that. Believe me, we've brought that attention to it. We know that. And we know we'll have to be working with the DNR. So to get the design done this year for both bridges and the intersection would be a very plus thing. So maybe we get the funding. And we'll work with, like I said, Representative McMillan's here. He knows how important that is, and we'll work with everybody we can to try and get that.
That's right, and I'd like to point out, by getting these designs done, it gives us the greatest flexibility if we are able to find an alternative funding source. Perhaps an earmark comes aboard, something like that. We'll keep trying for those. As I said, we're hoping that maybe the city will partner with us, split the design so that we can get it moving, get it rolling. But I'd also like to point out that while we're asking some help on the design, simply because it's not in our budget this year, the Road Commission when it comes to the construction, the Road Commission will be paying the construction match, all the construction match, the construction engineering, the right-of-way costs, and the force account work. So we'll be taking on pretty much all the construction match that would come about and right-of-way costs, unless they get so excessive that we have to come again hat in hand. But at this point, we don't anticipate that kind of a thing. The right-of-way is pretty. We shouldn't have to acquire additional right-of-way. So, we can take any questions, or however you'd like to conduct this.
Okay. Mr. Davis, you have anything you want to add, or is that where you, from the city's perspective?
Well, the one thing I will add is, I guess just to point out the mayor's persistence in following this project. I mean, I literally get asked just about every day or every other day, what are we doing on Avon Road? And I can tell council that this is foremost on the mayor's agenda. He's been doing everything he can to work with the road commission and resolve this issue as quick as we can. And you know, I think it is a primary issue, and I can add additional detail if you have certain questions, but I think for now I'll just let you go forward with questions.
Okay. Take council deliberation. Mr. Klopp.
Thank you, and I'll echo that. You know, I know the mayor's been working hard on it as well, and you know, we're getting emails daily, it seems, with updates and just information going back and forth. And it's, you know, I know it's weighing heavily on my mind and all of our residents. You know, the weekends, you know, you notice the backups in the middle of the day, and it is what it is. You know, it's a tough thing to deal with. But got a few questions, just trying to kind of help. Hopefully, you can help me understand kind of the situation that we're at. The bridge on Avon, it's 14 tons right now. That nothing over 14 tons on that bridge. The signs are up there that are posted. Mm-hmm. How conservative is that? And the reason why I ask is because, you know, you pull up to that light and you sit there on that bridge. You know, and I know you guys are conservative, and I know you guys are, and I appreciate the comments, but you know, you think about that a little bit, and I'm just curious as to how much more could it potentially hold? How close are we to that?
Well, it may seem a bit conservative, and it is, but the reason it's conservative, when you load these concrete beams there, when you load even a regular load or a concrete beam, a steel beam, anything, when you drive a car or truck across that, the load gets carried and transferred down through the members. A car, in most cases, but what I should say is, when you load those beams, there is an infinitesimal deflection, okay, in each one of those beams as they share that load. As you drive a truck over that, the deflection is larger than it would be with a car. Typical round numbers is a truck equals about 10,000 cycles of an automobile. So what we're trying to do here is conserve this so that it is able to continue with automobile traffic over the next few years until we can reconstruct it. So it's slightly conservative. Could it handle more? Yes, it could. But if we started allowing 20,000 tons across it, it would not last as long as it will if we restrict the weight.
It's not going to cave in. It's not at that level. It's just going to get to a point where the deterioration is concerning.
You're exactly right. It's not imminently going to cave in, but as you can see from the degradation curve that was shown on your that placemat, it's going downhill fast, and as those beams continue to pop strands, it's going to continue to degrade.
We're not afraid to shut the bridge down because we did that over at Silver Bell Road Bridge over there, and that's a 5-lane major thoroughfare right through over there by the GM plant. So we're not afraid to shut that down if we think it's warranted. Believe me. We have an engineering company that has certified to do that checks these bridges out. They check them out, and we're probably moving up hopefully the inspection as often as possible because we're obviously concerned about that.
Okay. On the strands, why does it weaken from the outside in?
I'm sorry?
On the strands that are weakening, why does it start on the outside and work itself in? What's the reasoning behind that?
As I said, the beams are box beams. They're rectangular concrete box beams, so they have a joint in between them. The asphalt is right on top of that, and the asphalt cracks there, the roadway surface, the asphalt surface cracks there, and that allows then the water and the salt to leach down between the joints. It leaches down to the bottom of the joint where it hangs, and it eventually starts eroding on those corners.
Right, I got that. I just wonder why the individual strands on the far right side and the far left side of the bridge are the ones that have slowly started deteriorating, while the strands in the middle are remaining intact. I'm just curious as to why, and you would think that would be counterintuitive because the more likely traveled is near the center.
Could be the tilt of the road, the water draining that way. When the salt in the water and it gets pushed by the plow trucks, pushed over to the side, constantly pushed over to the side. I mean, whatever it is, but believe me, we're aware of it, and we're concerned about it.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out that the pavement's crowned, so the
Okay.
water tends to, we try to drain it, off toward the bridge a little bit. Also,
gonna just do that.
as I mentioned, all the beams work together, so when a truck or a car goes over, all of them deflect slightly. Those center beams have more collective strength than the ones on either end, so it does tend to start in the outside lanes.
All right. Now, I understand this is snuck up a little bit, right? And just in the deterioration rate, because we can certainly identify some level of rate. And of course, limiting the amount of traffic that goes on it, that's going to affect that. But do you have any sense at all as to what you'd expect us to get in terms of lifetime? I mean, or is it just completely, we'll see what kind of winters we get, the salt and so forth?
The biggest factor there is the loads, and as Eric mentioned, we ended up having shut down Silver Bell Road. We had posted the Silver Bell Road Bridge, I think about a year ago or something to that effect, and it continued to degrade dramatically. Although we had it posted lower, the trucks were ignoring it. So the key on this one is we're going to have to enforce it. We just have two-way masters for the whole county. But we're going to try to have them focus here as best they can, and hopefully we can get some help from the local community to keep trucks off of this as well.
Okay. Well, and I'll add that, shutting the road down, I certainly appreciate that. Obviously, you're at that point and you have to do it, but it truly is a catch-22 in that, we've got emergency responders, we've got the firehouse that you know, and the heavy trucks, and if we've got an incident up on John R. Road north of Avon, that's going to take quite a bit longer for us to get out there, for our firemen and emergency responders to get out there. Also worth noting is Crittenton Hospital with the trauma center.
Exactly.
I know there's a lot of traffic back and forth. I live off of Avon. I hear it. The back and forth, is quite frequent. So it starts to affect public safety. So it's really a conundrum.
Absolutely.
Council member, this is what's going on all over the state in regards to funding for infrastructure on roads. It is happening all over the state in regards to bridges and roads.
Yeah.
There are other bridges in Oakland County that we have a list of that we've put weight restrictions on. There are some, if we put a certain weight restrictions on, those people can't, I don't know how they get to their house because it's almost like an island. We'll put them there. So it's a real problem. We're aware of it. We've brought it aware to all our members at the State House and also the State Senate and the governor.
Okay. Thank you. And furthermore, just with the funding, I know we've talked about it, and you both, did a nice job of explaining that. But I still think of, gee, if we had the funds to do it now, I mean, I know there's the design study, but why can't it? Yeah, I know you've got an answer for this, but I think I've got to hear it, and everybody's got to hear it. Exactly why? Thank you. Exactly why?
Do we have $5 million that we can just fix a bridge? That's what you're asking. I think that's what he's asking, Tom.
No, I think it was, we have the money, why can't we do a design build or something like that?
Fund balance or something like that, where the city looks at it like it's a public safety issue. We got to do something. We'll front the money. Can we get paid back by the road commission, by the state and federal funding?
Well, that is one funding possible scenario. The road commission, we don't have the money to front the money.
Sure.
If we can work something together, and we were able to somehow advance construct this, if it's funded, if it's approved for funding, we could do that. If you, for example, Avon Road Bridge is approved for funding, if the local agency wanted to advance construct it, that can be approved by MDOT, and we can move ahead with that, and the community would get reimbursed in the year that fund was approved for. The Livernois Bridge at this point is not approved, so advanced constructing that, you wouldn't get reimbursed unless it was already approved for funding.
Mr. Klomp, I think part of your question is, if we had the money right now, why can't we be constructing this come June or July? And the answer to that, Mr. Bluss had kind of mentioned that we still need to do the design, and it does take a little while to do the design. There's, I'll just give some of the items that need to be considered. First, you have to do soil borings. We want to make sure that this new bridge is going to be it's going to be a different design than what was done previously, so we need to get some information on soil borings. We need to have a survey crew pick up topography so that we can create the design plans. We need to contact utility companies. From the city standpoint, on the Avon Road Bridge on the south side, we have a water main that's right on the south end of the wing wall of that bridge, and we're looking at possibly replacing that. And I know there's other private utility companies that are in there now. They may want to look at replacing some of their items, but I guess the answer is this stuff takes time, and we have to go through a permitting process and a plan review process. And I wish we could be out for bids in a month and be ready to award a project come May and start constructing in June. But the reality is it's going to take more time than that. Even if a design-build project was to proceed, we still need to get some basic information in order to put together a package that a contractor can have a reasonable amount of comfort in bidding out or bidding or quoting a price on the project. So that's frustrating, I know. Why can't we move this forward, even if we had the money today? But the reality is that we're going to need some time to complete this design, and it's got to be done right. I mean, unfortunately, this bridge, Avon was originally built in '63 and widened in '72, and it should last a minimum 50 years, and it didn't. And let's make sure that the next bridge for Avon and Livernois is better and does last that long.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, and that's really all my questions, and I appreciate you answering those so well. Seem like reasonable explanations for that, and I hope you understand. It's just it's a real tough issue. It really is weighing heavily on the entire community. It's not even just Rochester Hills. It's talked about just about in every event I've been at over the last couple of weeks. So it's quite concerning.
Yeah, if I may say, you hit on some of the major issues. The Crittenton Hospital, the schools north of there, the fire department, I believe, is south of there. City halls, or township halls, just down the road.
College right there.
It would be catastrophic to have to close one or both of those legs, and we're certainly doing everything we can to avoid that.
Okay. Thank you again, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weber.
Yeah, I appreciate the presentation, Chairman Wilson, Mr. Blust, and then also Rep. McMillan. I know the work that Rep. McMillan's been doing on this, working with Mayor Barnett, working with our administration on this. One of the items, before I get into the questions, one of the items for the council is I did pass out a resolution that the Advisory Traffic and Safety Board passed at the February 8th meeting. We had a very energetic conversation for about an hour on it. Paul Shemako was there, and I know Chairman Colling from the Traffic Board is here tonight. The question became, why can't we do, similar to what Councilman Klomp, why can't we do a design and build this year? I think some of those answers have already come out, but what is the impediment, I guess, to doing the design and build, knowing that we have the money available or approved at this point?
I think there's a question of, I think we can do it. I mean, if we could, I'd like to do that. But there's always a question of cost when you push a construction project like that. When you put people in there, and I have another place of business down in the south end of the county, and when they MDOT rebuilt 9 Mile Road, they had them working Thanksgiving every day, 7 days a week, 24 hours, 24/7 there basically. And there's a cost associated. And if, will the bridge people, the state, give us enough money to reimburse us for that type of project if we do a 24/7 project to get it redone? I agree. That's the kind of thing that should be done. But can we afford it? That's really the question.
Well, if I may also say, MDOT and the feds don't allow local agencies to do design-build projects. They don't. We have to do the traditional design, build the project. Also, we're precluded from that. Additionally, Paul and I worked with MDOT on the design build for the Crooks Road interchange, and I'm not sure by the time you have to come up with so much specifications to tell the people what they're proposing on. By the time you get through that, get their proposals and go through the whole thing, I'm not so sure they're really saving any time and that we'd save much time by doing a design build on this. And as Eric alluded, one of the biggest factors here is, you have to work with stream restrictions. You can only be there at certain times, and you need a lot of flexibility as to when you can go ahead and do these.
The other question, go ahead.
Well, I'll just add a final thing. It does take a little bit of time to get the design build. On the Crooks Interchange, MDOT had a time constraint in order to appropriate some budget money, and that's why they had to proceed in that format. Now, design build can save time, but it still takes some amount of effort. And when we look at all the different, challenges on this project, whether it's from utility companies, whether it's from some of the stream habitat that the DNR might place on as far as being able to construct in the stream bed, and also when the asphalt plants close in November, we're going to have likely some paving work associated with along the roadway other than just the bridge. So we not only would need to be able to start a project, but we don't want it to be carried over into the spring. And that's, it's something that kind of caught up to us on Tinkin Road when we were by the Kings Cove Bridge, where we were fighting the weather, trying to get this road opened up in December. And it's when we're looking at the schedule, again, we can look further in the design build. And we'll continue to do that, because I think the time frame is, the quicker we can resolve this situation, the better for everybody included, the road commission, the city, and the residents. But we have to be realistic too, and we have to have a schedule that is going to work and isn't going to force us into a very undesirable position come November or December.
The other question I had was with regard to, and I think Mr. Davis kind of clarified it for me a little bit with regard to the age, that we did not think, that we thought that the bridge would last perhaps another 10, 12 years longer than it appears it's going to be. But, in terms of and this is a question that's been asked to me a lot, is, I know that we're doing the 3-month inspections, and my understanding was before the Road Commission would do at least a yearly inspection of these bridges. And perhaps did not see the deterioration to the level that it's gotten to until it started closing the one lane on Avon in September of '09. Having said that, knowing the age, were these bridges ever considered to kind of on a more proactive basis to be considered to be a part of that local bridge plan with the state? Because it seems to me that the projects that are 2011 projects were part of that 2008, 2009 time frame. Can the Road Commission comment on that, I guess?
I would just indicate that the first question I asked is, how come we were using this kind of design? When somebody asked me. Because back in 1972, what was I doing? I think I was just come back from Vietnam. Building bridges was not in my mind right there at the time. But that was the project, the way it was built in '72. Tom and I were not around. We don't, And once this became aware of where we have these box-type bridges, these type of construction, we have really taken an active role in regards to looking at these kind of bridges and determining if they're all going or whatever. I mean, once we found out about Silverbell, we were checking this one. We're aware of these type of bridges, and we're bringing it up. I mean, we think and I think there's problems probably throughout the state on these issues. I mean, if they've had this.
The ones that were, the bridges that were built in the same period using that same method is that they're having problems with them. The state, MDOT, and others are still using the box beams, but they're sealing the top of them so that the water can't get down to the beams themselves. But the problem with the concrete box beam, is you can go under it and everything looks fine, it's all concrete, and you can go back in 6 months and then everything is exposed, because until the concrete starts falling off there, it looks like it's in good shape. And there's no way to look inside the beam.
Councilman Weber, just to supplement that, because you have a good question, we asked it as well, and you can correct me, Tom, if I misstep or misspeak, but the Road Commission submits these bridges, and only the top 5 receive funding. And bear in mind, Avon Road Bridge was submitted, didn't receive funding. Avon Road Bridge only received funding about 90 days ago in November. So it was only until that they would receive funding that you would even consider doing engineering, because then you'd have the possibility to advance construct it, or could at least budget for it. So even though the problems with Avon Bridge stretch farther back, say, why wasn't the engineering done? Avon Road Bridge has only been funded since last November, November of 10.
Yeah.
So we've only had funding for even the Avon Road Bridge for about 3 months.
Right, and I guess I'd just like to correct one point. We can only submit 5. We're lucky if we get 1 funded. There's been probably 3 out of the last 4 or 5 years we got no bridges funded.
And I understand that, and I've been trying to, some of the residents have commented to me, about the lack of funding for the Livernois Bridge. I've tried to point that out, that we did submit that, or the Road Commission did submit that, and that I think everybody's very hopeful of getting that funded. The only comment I would say is, this certainly is a frustrating situation for all involved. Yeah. I think there's certainly no bad ideas in terms of how to expedite this as quick as possible for the safety of people using those bridges. I certainly would support a plan to help out with the design. I think we need to have a design in place for both of those bridges as quickly as possible, so that should that funding become available for Livernois, should we be able to move this Avon Road Bridge up, that we're ready, that we're prepared as a road commission, as a community to move forward, so that we're not left behind or they go to some other project. But certainly no bad ideas, and look forward to the rest of the discussion going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alamachi.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Both of my colleagues did a very good job in covering a lot of the questions I had. I mean, in final analysis, if I were to conclude, we have the funding for A1 Bridge, and the earliest that it can be done is December 2011. Is that a fair statement?
No, we've been approved for funding in fiscal year 2013 for the Avon Road Bridge.
Okay. So given that, can we do the advance on that particular road, a particular bridge?
Right, that's what
That's
we're
the one.
proposing at this point, is if we can get the design started so that we'll be able to actually bid it as soon as fiscal year 2013 comes up, that'd be good. And we're hoping, crossing our fingers, and we won't know this until probably the end of this year at least, that we may be able to, if there's money left over in the program. We've raised a lot of attention in Lansing on this, and we're hoping that if there's any money left over in the program, that they'll allow us to move it up, or that they will move it up to 2012.
And I appreciate your candidness about you won't hesitate to close the bridges. I think last time we had this discussion, and I bring up this question again, is looks like we have to have a plan, because if for some reason it happens where both the bridges get closed, and earlier discussion, I mean, we have a potentially very, very challenging situation for many, for people going to work and everything, and for fire runs, police and everything. What is, in a what-if situation, what is our backup plan? I guess, how do the traffic move around, and what do we do to educate our businesses, our residents, everybody, to be prepared for that situation? Looks like we may, I mean, hopefully it won't, but looks like we could end up in that situation.
Well, hopefully not, but if it does, then we would obviously have posted detour routes, truck routes. There will be posted truck routes as part of this closure, these weight reductions. But if the unthinkable came and we had to close one or both of these roadways at these bridges, yeah, we'd have to try to do a massive public information, public education campaign, and let's hope we don't have to go there.
I hope so too, but what I'm asking and suggesting is maybe we should be prepared, and hopefully we don't have to use it. So I'm asking for you to think about it,
Okay.
and so that we are prepared for it.
Yeah.
Good point. Yep.
Yeah, thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
Thank you, President Hooper. I'd like to ask a couple questions to get the situation square in my mind. So what came up tonight about the remaining good beams versus the, call them compromised beams, maybe? A good way to think about it.
Good word.
The weight restrictions, well, you've narrowed the road to the portions of the road that still have good beams, uncompromised beams, as best we can tell. And you've reduced the weight on those beams, the allowable weight, in order to extend the stress cycle so that hopefully they will deteriorate somewhere between not at all or not very much. Is that about the way to think about it?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. I didn't hear it clearly, but if the two center lanes, if you want to call them that, remain open, are the emergency vehicles, like the smaller fire engines, are they allowed in emergency situations to go with traffic? Is that a yes or a no? Have we thought about that?
Yeah, we have. In fact, I talked to your fire chief quite a bit about it, and by the way, I was very impressed. He said some things in the conversation before I even got there. He understood. He got it. That was one of the big factors in us relooking at and having our consultant relook at the load restriction on Livernois, is we need to be able to get emergency vehicles across that. My understanding that I believe he's checking the gross vehicle weight on all of his fire engines, but he told me that he's going to try to avoid going across Livernois, even though he's under that legal limit with his normal fire truck, because he wants to extend the life of that bridge as much as possible. So he said, if there's an emergency up there, if there's a fire, or somebody's hurt, something like that, he's going to go across it. But he said if he can avoid it, he understands that he wants to keep this bridge in decent shape as long as we possibly can.
That's what I was looking for, is a fairly clear answer there. And that all makes sense, because if you don't have to use it, don't use it. But when you have to, they have to be able to do that.
Yes.
And that will hopefully extend the allowing passenger cars to use it until we get to fix them.
Exactly.
That's obviously your intent. I think Mr. Davis wants to.
Yeah, we should probably give additional credit to the Rochester Community Schools. We did talk to them about their school buses, and John Stoner indicated that they're going to arrange to avoid the Livernois Bridge with school buses, even though their buses are under the limit. Their buses are Type C, which is about 38,000, or no, about 30,000 pounds. So it would be under the limit, but they're also cooperating, and I think they get it. And it's another thing that will hopefully allow this bridge to be available until we're able to replace it.
Yeah, in fact, my wife and I decided we're just not going to go that way unless that's the only way we can get there. So I want to understand the ownership and who normally pays for what. Road Commission owns the bridges, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, we have jurisdiction.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
they're your bridges. They're your roads.
There are bridges.
Okay. Ordinarily, if this were not in a panic mode, you would apply to the state for the MDOT funding, and you would be the match. Rochester Hills would not have to match at all.
That's true. That is our policy on our bridges, yes.
It's not like the tri-party agreement where there's a city, county, and federal match sometimes. It's not like that.
No. Typically on a bridge program, on a bridge project, we handle all the local match. There are times when a community wants something special, or it's very important to them, or they want to be part of it. They want decorative lighting or aesthetic arrangements, and they contribute to that. But and by the way, this is that we're still proposing that in the actual construction phase at this point. What we're proposing is splitting the design cost so we can get that ahead.
Okay, that's really where I want to focus on, because as I understood what you said is, if the funding is approved, we can get into an advanced construct situation where the city can advance some money, and if it's approved, if that construction of that bridge is approved, we can give you design money up front, you can do the design, and we'll be reimbursed when you get the funding from wherever you were getting it from.
No.
Is that kind of how that works? So, for example, if you were going to get the DOT funding in 13, and we were only looking at Avon Bridge, since that's been approved for 13, can we advance funds for design in 11 and get reimbursed for that at some time in the future?
No, the design costs and the right-of-way costs are not part of the local, the state and federal funding. So that only pays for the construction. That is 95% of construction only.
So engineering is not matched by the state.
The design engineering.
Design engineering.
Well, none of the engineering. The construction engineering isn't either, and we would provide that. The right-of-way is not part of the program either. It's
Okay.
just the construction.
Because, and if we were reimbursed, it's an absolutely no-brainer, okay, for the engineering. Yeah, we'll give it to you, we can front that for a couple years, and in order, because I clearly understand that you probably can't get the bridge designed and the contracts bid probably before Thanksgiving. You can't get the engineering done and being in a position to go for bids till, Halloween, Thanksgiving. I understand how much work it is, and it's not the bridge design. That's done by computer. It's everything you have to input into the computer to let it do its thing and come out with the design. So I get that part, and I also agree with, I think, what Mr. Davis said about you really don't want to build bridges in the wintertime over a sensitive thing like...
We got stuck that way once before over at Cass Lake, and it was just
it's awful.
took a long time.
Exactly.
Extended the construction period just a lot longer.
So it makes sense to me, speaking only of Avon, that that if we could advance the money and get it back, it's a no-brainer. It's a hard think over whether we advance half the design cost for Avon. And whether it's worth, sounds to me like, how much for just Avon? Is that like a 100?
I'm sorry, how much?
How much is the engineering for the one bridge?
That is broken out in an agreement I brought, and it's, well, the first bridge for Avon is, we've got it broken out in the proposed agreement. The total for all the design for Avon Road Bridge, Livernois Bridge, and reconstruction of the intersection, which we hope isn't necessary, but if we have to raise the bridges to get them out of the floodway, we're going to end up back into the intersection and end up having to reconstruct the intersection to get grades. We're hoping that doesn't happen. But that total is 545. 290 of that is the first bridge, Avon Road. Livernois is estimated at 170,000, with the remaining 85,000 estimated for the Livernois intersection. The reason the first bridge is so much more expensive is we're going to have to do the hydraulic modeling all the way through the corridor. We're going to do the topography all the way through the corridor. We're going to do the soil borings for Avon Bridge, so, we might as well pop a couple more in over there by the Livernois Bridge while we've got the rig out and everything. So those costs are all in the first bridge. Did you want to say something?
I'm glad this came up, because one of the things I should have mentioned is the importance of this hydraulic analysis. That's something that's going to be very important with the design of this bridge. And if I can, I'd like to just show a couple quick pictures. Mary Jo, if I can. It's right here.
Oh.
This was 2004.
Yeah, remember that.
This is Avon Road. You can see, the bridge right here is pretty close with the flooding here, but then there's also a lot of carryover where it actually crested over Avon Road. And there were reports even of fish going over the roadway here. So this hydraulic analysis is going to be important. I'll show another picture of...
If I can point out here, Paul.
Yeah.
This is downstream. This is the east side, isn't it?
This is looking east towards Rochester Road. Yes.
East?
Eastbound Avon.
Okay, so this is downstream.
No, it's upstream.
No, it's
That way.
upstream.
Go
This
left.
is, the flow's going that way.
Okay.
And, not surprisingly, this is Livernois. It's right up to the top there. So this hydraulic analysis that's going to be done as part of the design is very important, and it's going to also dictate how some of the costs go on. If we need to raise this bridge, it's going to get carried into the intersection. There's going to have to be a lot of attention paid to that design if we get into where these bridges are going to be raised vertically from where they're currently at today?
You know, I had this conversation with Tom earlier, probably a month ago. We started talking about this, and I said, Tom, I said, we're going to build a bridge like they build over at I-94 and Telegraph, you know, with the blue raised up. He says, we may have to because of the floodplain, because of the issues there, because of the water. It's just and we have to recognize those issues. You never know.
Well, the disappointing part about this whole thing is that design and construction engineering is not included as part of the match we get from DOT. And I understand that given the circumstances, what you're really trying to do is combine the two, and I can understand how the economies of scale, I guess. I mean, you're already there, why not do both of them at the same time? That makes sense, and that's why it comes out. You've got funding for your half, basically. No, you don't. That's the point. You'll put up half the engineering if we put up half the engineering in order to be able to get both bridges, I hate to use the term shovel-ready, but ready for construction as soon as the money becomes available, and then use that as a way to try and get people to make money more available.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So what we're talking about is half of 545, basically whatever it is, 222.
And that's to move construction up to hopefully 2012. Correct, Tom?
Well,
Right, well, if we
Right.
get approved for moving
Right.
it up, yeah.
okay. And behind the back channel plan is because the engineering's being done, to use that till DOT do it in 12, construction in 12, not 13. And once you get that done, be able to try and convince people to allow to do Avon either in 12 or 13, depending on when funds are available. And if funds became available for, say, 14 for Livernois, could we then advance construct to do it either at the same time as Avon or subsequently, you finish with Avon and start Livernois kind of thing?
You see it very clearly, Councilmember. You see it right. Which, if the money becomes available, we then can get those agreements in place to be able to move it up as quickly as possible. But we need to get that money in place for the Livernois Bridge.
As much as I hate to spend $225,000, it's sounding like it might not be a bad idea. One of the better spends around here in a while. Because as long as you can keep the bridges intact for passenger cars and emergency vehicles when necessary, that's worth doing. And all the lane restrictions and all that's minor stuff. We can live with that. I mean, painfully, but we can still live with it. The question is, will it all last until 2014? And I don't think the answer to that is yes. Or maybe say it another way. I'm afraid the answer to that might not be yes. So
I look at those floods. We could have some of those floods again too this spring. You never know.
I don't even want to go there. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm always the optimist.
Mayor Barnett?
Yes, just briefly, we've talked a lot about this, but I think it's commensurate with the concerns that our community shares about this. It just passed out something that I think we just got maybe today or maybe we got on Friday, the cost participation agreement, and I don't know if council certainly has not had time to review it, and I understand that. We like I said, we just got it on Friday. I think that another way to say what Councilman Rosen was saying was, what are we getting for the money that we're paying that we normally, if we waited for the normal process, we wouldn't have to pay for? And essentially what we're getting, and I know, I'll speak for myself on this, and we're going to push really hard, and the Road Commission probably isn't ready to commit that this funding could happen in 12. But if we get the engineering done on both of these, it's my plan to push as hard as possible, hopefully to be able to use the money from the state, move forward from 13 to 12. Hopefully we'll know that sooner than the end of this year to do Avon. And then if in November, when Livernois, which we feel pretty highly likely will hopefully, again this is an if, is approved for funding in 2014, we could then use that to advance construct. And we've gone so far in the administration to look at multiple ways we could do that, either with our own internal funding or with utilizing something called the State Infrastructure Bank, so that potentially, as long as we have this engineering done, we have the opportunities. This gives us more tools to be able to look at how we can fund this. I mean, we're stuck here today because we're saying, look, we have the money, but we don't have the engineering. We don't have the design done yet. So we're 6 months out from being really able to do anything because we don't have the engineering. And this, of course, would allow us to get that done. I think it's reasonable. I don't like spending it either, but, I mean, you think about even the wait of a month from the traffic each night that sits and each morning that sits at that intersection, the opportunity cost, the cost to the economy creeps quickly, and I think it's something that I hope Council will feel comfortable on and will move, if not tonight, relatively quickly at an upcoming meeting, because I think this will allow us to move forward. You should also know we have monies that Congressman Peters has attached to the omnibus bill in the House, that being the U.S. House in Washington. Who knows whether that will crack loose. I mean, we're talking about a government shutdown later this week, so I'm not holding a lot of hope for that, but it is there. We're working that front. You know, our representative has been working with the governor and lieutenant governor on some others. And we are rattling every saber that we can find because, and even talking about the State Infrastructure Bank, we just can't do it yet because we don't have the funding. The other thing that we're doing, very frankly, and I'll, you know, again, speaking only for myself, is I'm pushing now to talk to MDOT about their process. You know, are there things in their standard process without sacrificing safety that we can push on so that the normal process of a 90-day bid let or a 60-day review process or, you know, something of those natures that without compromising safety that would allow us to shrink those standard answers that you would get, you know, again, coming at this from the standpoint that this is a community emergency, would allow us to move this forward in a quicker fashion. So there are standard answers that I know the Road Commission has to give because they're very safe and very true, but we're trying to push. We've already realized that we have met some acceptance of trying to work a little bit outside the standard lines in terms of the process that is probably true for any other bridge or any other project and under a normal circumstance. So we've been through this. We've looked at this again. We think that this is probably the right thing to do in order to be able to have options for funding next year, certainly, with a ray of hope that something still may happen this year on Avon, a ray of hope. But certainly, it would be my intention that we would be able to move both of these in 12. And, of course, in order to do that, the first step is we need to get the design. Thanks.
With that, a couple comments. I guess I want to follow up on Mr. Rosen's comment. Well, first of all, as far as this cost participation, I haven't read it, and the public hasn't seen it, so I'm not interested in any kind of a motion tonight at all on that until we're able to post it and everyone else is able to read it and see it and become familiar with it. And I understand the process. If we went the normal process, 100% road commission for bridges, and that's design engineering, construction engineering, and the right-of-way. Because of the situation right now, you're looking for us to kick in half to hopefully move it up sooner. And it sure would be great. I mean, yeah, to me it's an absolute slam dunk if we're able to get reimbursed for that. And I guess that's through your normal road commission budget process, is to be reimbursed for the bridges. When you apply for the design engineering, construction engineering, and right-of-way, is your normal operational budget to pay for that? Or is that something that's part of that state program to get reimbursed for local bridges?
We don't get reimbursed for the design, do we, Tom? No, we don't get reimbursed for the design.
So that's part of your budget, part of your
That's part of our
M&O
regular
budget.
budget, yes.
Okay, right then.
And our budget is committed for the year. Where
understand.
we're going to spend it, and, you know, in fact, we have a 3-year plan right now where our budget's going.
Right, same with us too. We do 3-year budgeting ourselves. So here we're, you know, looking for the city to kick in half to move it up and help pay for the normal road commission costs on this and gain a year or two possibly on that. If we ever looked, and I guess I want to follow back also too on our normal share contribution. If it wasn't a bridge, we normally would have a contribution of 10%. What do we normally contribute for road commission roads?
Right. Typically on a road a widening project, a road paving project, anything like that, we look to split the local match with the local community.
Okay. Right. Have we looked into temporary bridges at all? I know I've done a little bit of research, and there's a number of firms that do temporary bridges that interstates, that they've used interstates on and whatnot. Has the road commission ever had any experience, any knowledge at all regarding some of these temporary bridges?
Limited. We've looked at them in the past, and I just saw a proposal come through recently on that. You know, there are factors that go into play on that as well, because of course you're spending a good deal of money for that. You can also basically lease a bridge. You know, so if you're building a temporary, you end up buying the temporary bridge and all the members, and what do you do with them afterwards? You know, or else, you know, they'll supply them and basically lease them to you. By the time you lease them at you know, $80,000 or $100,000 a year, plus the cost of erection and everything else, you know, you're spending a lot of money. But additionally, the program, or the temporary bridges that I've seen usually raise the road grade pretty dramatically, or at least quite a bit, and that'll get back into the intersection on this as well. So it's something that we're looking at. We're looking more at on these two bridges, but in the past we've looked into them, and they haven't been all we'd hoped.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess if we ever got to the situation where we're looking to close that road, as vital as that road is, I think I'd more than be willing to look at a temporary bridge, some kind of temporary crossing, rather than just take a full road closure, especially if you're close both Livernois and Avon. That'd just be catastrophic to the community. And I'm sure we would spend $150,000 or whatever. Ask my colleagues to see what they want to do, but to put a temporary bridge in order to get some kind of access across that on a temporary basis.
But, you know, I understand what you're saying, but my thinking on it is it always been is that we're all in a tight situation, both all agencies, the cities, counties, state, and we only have so many dollars. And so we look at it from the point of view, do we do a complete fix and get it done right, or we do a partial fix, and therefore they put us out further years down the road because you've got it temporarily fixed. We're going to make you wait till 14 or 15 or 16 to get your money then to fix the road.
Yeah,
so those are issues that, you know, you got to understand. I mean, you just don't go there, fix it, and say, well, then you go to apply for your bridge money, and well, you've got it fixed. We'll look at you for 15 or 16.
Yeah, absolutely not. What I'm saying is, in any kind of a fix, this is a temporary access only. It's not part of a fix at all for that bridge whatsoever.
Yeah, if it comes to a crisis, we'll have to look at that very hard. What can we do? You're right.
Right. Okay.
Hopefully we won't come to a crisis and have to face that.
Okay. Mr. Rosen.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. I think, as a lot of people can see, it's very tempting to go along with this idea in the interest of speed and convenience for the community. I don't normally ask this because I get a fair amount of feedback anyway, but people who see this or understand what's going on and have strong views, I think you should contact either the mayor or one of us so that we can get a pretty solid feel for what people think out there, whether spending $250,000 that we normally wouldn't have to get those bridges fixed maybe a year or two earlier, whether people think that's worth it. I happen to think it is. I happen to think it's one of the few smart buys we can make in roads or bridge construction. But I'm interested in getting the public's feedback as what do people think, you know, are we whistling Dixie, or is this actually a pretty good tune? So that's my follow-up. Thank you.
Okay. And to follow up that, too, I agree with you. I think the Road Commission's funding model is broken. And I think you know that yourself. Your model for getting revenue to do your work is a broken model, and it's not sustainable. And that's for someone other than us to make decisions on that.
We have brought that to our state representatives, our state senators, and the governor's attention, both in the last several years. They're aware of it, and they've got to have to make a decision on that.
Okay. All right. With that, we will have this on our next agenda for this cost participation agreement.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
I thank you very much.
Okay.